First off, hi everybody. My name is Jenna Valente and I am the Ocean Policy Manager for the American Littoral Society. I am also the Healthy Oceans Coalition Coordinator, both of which you will be hearing more about from some of my colleagues that will be speaking on the panel. And tonight I will be serving as the moderator of the event. And I really would like to wish you all and extend to you all a warm welcome, especially to those of you that may or may not be currently getting quite a bit of snow or will be getting quite a bit of snow in the coming hours. I know that I fit squarely within that group of people. It has not started snowing here yet, but it is going to soon. So understanding that we are living in a world where we are spending a lot of time on Zoom, we just really want to express our gratitude for all of you being here today with us for our Growing Grassroots gathering. How is that for an alliteration? It's pretty fun to say. So it's just a complete honor to be joined by you all today and our panelists, who are all conservation leaders that have a great deal of experience approaching grassroots advocacy in varying, yet, as you will hear shortly, interconnecting ways. And I think that is something that's important to note as we go into this conversation, is that our actions have collective impacts and they're all interconnected. And in addition to all of that, they can be incredibly influential to the health of our communities, the planet, the choices that decision makers make, and so on and so forth. So that's really what grassroots advocacy is all about. It's the collective and collaborative impact that we can all have. And tonight we are hoping to not only share about some of the work and the initiatives that the Society and some of our partners are doing, but also discuss some ways that we, and when I say we, in this case, meaning all of us on this webinar and beyond, can lead from where we are and get involved and support each other's work, and amplify each other's work, as well as spark change in our spheres of influence. So with that, I will just share a few logistics and then we will meet our guests. So first you'll notice that we placed all of you on mute upon entering the Zoom room. And this is just to minimize any background noise or distractions, to be mindful of our speakers. So we ask that you please remain on mute throughout the remainder of the event, and enter any questions or comments that you may have in the chat. Also, thank you so much to those of you that submitted questions in advance. We have them in the queue and we will also be monitoring the chat for any additional questions and comments throughout the event. We will share a follow-up email with you all after the webinar with any resources, projects, initiatives, or upcoming events that the speakers share. So keep an eye out for that. And then the last thing that I will note is, of course, we love to see your faces and the really cool backgrounds that some of you have. But we understand that it's 6 o'clock and it could be dinner time for some of you, or you may have family or pets or roommates coming in and out of the room, or you just may be completely done with Zoom for the day. So please join us, and we trust that you'll join us in the way that best fits your needs right now, whether that is with your video on or off. And then there's also a way to adjust the view in your Zoom. If you hover your mouse over your screen, you'll see this little grid that says view next to it, or you should, that will allow you to change your speaker view. So if you would prefer to just see the panelists that are speaking, there's an option for that. You can see the gallery view where you can see everybody else's faces. And see, you know, like what the inside of people's homes look like. But whatever you guys are most comfortable with, all I'm trying to say is that that is fine with us. We just want to make sure that you all are being kind to yourselves and doing what you need to do right now. So with that, let's go ahead and meet our speakers. So tonight we are going to hear from Sarah Winter Whelan, who is the Ocean Policy Program Director and the Director of the Healthy Oceans Coalition for the American Littoral Society. We also will hear from Kristin Hall, who is Nicole Haynes, who is the Education Director for the American Littoral Society, and Amber Egroth, who is a 4th grade teacher at the Anthony Rossi Elementary School. So Sarah, I will hand it over to you to share a little bit more about who you are and what you do as it ties into grassroots advocacy.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to my office and my kindergarten classroom. I welcome you to my home tonight. I am Sarah Winter Whelan, like Jenna introduced. I work for the American Littoral Society and I run our ocean policy program. And I was really excited to be a part of tonight because grassroots advocacy is truly where my heart lies. It took a really long time in my career to get here. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer that helped protect the fish. And while I really enjoyed doing that for a while, I realized that sitting behind a desk and researching about how many fish we catch and don't catch actually isn't where my heart was. So when I moved to work at the society and started doing a lot more around engaging communities and bringing together grassroots advocates, I realized that I'm much more of a people person than I ever thought I was, and that I really thrive on the connection and learning from people who live next to the shore or to a lake and how they connect and how they want to advocate for that space that means so much to them. So I'm really excited to just talk with you all tonight, and our other panelists are super amazing. So in my introduction, which we're all going to keep pretty short, I just want to mention a few things about what the society does around grassroots advocacy to give you a flavor of sort of how our policy program works within that idea that Jenna mentioned around collaborative impact, which is such a huge thing and sort of what drives our policy program. And the first thing is our Healthy Oceans Coalition, which Jenna also mentioned. So Jenna and I run the HOC for short. I'm going to call it that just to help keep my time really short. And the HOC is grassroots advocacy. It is a coalition of grassroots advocates around the country. There's over 200 of us. And in a lot of these organizations, they are local community groups, sometimes 1 or 2 people who are doing the work. And they don't always have a person who is paying attention to what's happening in Washington, D.C. at the federal administration level or at the congressional level. But things that happen in DC impact our communities, I think, as we're all really aware. And so the HOC's part of our work is to make that connection between those groups who are doing the amazing watershed work, or they're restoring their bay, bringing down dams, whatever their group focuses on, and making the connections to how policy is shifting and how their voices truly matter and they're powerful, especially when they're put together as a group to make that collaborative impact. And so that's what the HOC does, is we connect those organizations into what's happening in DC. We help provide them opportunities when actions are happening either in Congress or in the federal administration around ocean and coastal conservation issues. And so we try and act both as a connector into DC for those groups and out from DC and what's happening. And we do trainings for grassroots advocates around the country to sort of educate them on some big policy issues that are happening. And we've been doing those for the last several years. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to get in a room with a bunch of other grassroots advocates and talk about what matters to them and how we can all make a bigger impact together when our voices are asking or demanding for some sort of change, or thanking decision makers for something that they did that we love, and then they're more likely to do something else down the road. And then one other piece, and then I'll shift out, is the society has done a lot of work around ocean planning, just the idea of bringing state decision makers, federal decision makers, and people who are working on the ocean, so fishermen and energy providers and surfers and recreational fishermen and conservation advocates, to a table where we can talk about things that are happening in our waters, and both just think about priorities and challenges and solutions. And one thing that I'm really excited that the Littoral Society has done is to get municipalities in New Jersey and New York interested in ocean planning. And so we have this program called Champions of the Coast, where we ask municipalities to take action on 3 specific items right now around ocean planning, around preventing offshore oil and gas, and around marine debris, specifically around balloon bans. And when they take those actions and they get engaged in those issues, it's our way of bringing the local voice into what's happening at the state level and the regional level. And so that's something that we can talk about more later, but I just wanted to introduce the idea of that's another one of the ways that we try and sort of get to that collaborative impact by raising municipal voices through this program. So I'm going to stop there, and thank you again for letting me chat a little bit about what we do.
Thank you, Sarah. And if, as we're hearing introductions, if you have questions or comments, again, please feel free to put them in the chat and I'll be monitoring them. And then we will transition into a more of a discussion after we hear introductions from all of our panelists. So next, I will hand it over to Kristin Hall, who's the chair of the Rumson Environmental Commission.
Hi, thank you so much. And it's so nice to be here. I'm really excited about this panel. You know, as Jenna said, I'm chair of the Rumson Environmental Commission, and I just wanted to give you guys a little snapshot of my journey and how I got to where I am now, focused on grassroots, local grassroots advocacy. So spoiler alert, it all kind of happened when I became a mother and I had to rethink my career choices. I had gone to business school and worked on Wall Street, found that really difficult to continue. So I did some real thinking, and I had always been really passionate about the environment. When I was little, I had grown up on a farm. My parents were passionate about the environment. So I found on my business school website a job opportunity to do research for an environmental conservation foundation focused on water quality and affecting federal policy changes. So through that project, I learned a lot about advocacy and policy and water quality, importantly, as well. I decided to bring that back to my community and focus on the local, you know, my kids were in the schools. So I started focusing on the schools and affecting change within the schools, you know, starting off little, just installing bottle filling stations, eventually going to much larger programs, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about later. It was through that I actually ended up meeting the mayor of our town, and she asked me to be on the environmental commission that was up in Millburn. So that's where I kind of learned, it was sort of full circle, because I learned a lot about municipal governance and how to make change on a municipal level, how to work with the elected officials, as well as the you know, the people, the career professionals who run the town. And so I did that for a number of years until I moved to Rumson, where I am now. So in Rumson, that's where, you know, it's super interesting here because it's a very small town, but we're surrounded on 3 sides by water. So my background in water quality is really kind of effective. And working with the local stakeholders and the local organizations like ALS and others and the school system, there's so many opportunities to do things. So some of the things that I'll just highlight for you, which I think we'll talk more about later, but we were able to get some programming within the school system on environmental education through American Littoral Society. We have right now a river-friendly challenge going on where we're trying to really get people to make changes in their day-to-day lives. And I think we'll put that in the chat, the link to that. But there are, you know, on the Rumson Environmental Commission and the Shade Tree Commission, there's just a number of ways that we can really affect change. And I'm so excited to talk to you more about those. I think my time is kind of up, but I'll probably leave it to the next person. But thank you so much. This is going to be an interesting conversation, I think.
Thank you, Kristin. And I am tracking down that link to the River Friendly Challenge, and we'll put that in the chat in just a second. But next, we are going to hear Nicole Haynes, who is the Education Director for the American Littoral Society.
Hello, thank you, Jenna. So yes, my name is Nicole Haynes. I am the Education Director out of the Sandy Hook office for the American Littoral Society. So what I do is pretty much in my name, everything kind of related to education, whether it has to deal with the environment as a whole or kind of focusing more on marine science. So I have programs that I teach from kids as young as 1 or 2 years old, as long as they can understand me, all the way up to adults. And we have programs that deal with, like Kristin was talking about a little bit, things that go on in the Two Rivers area. So we work a lot with oysters, and we teach local school kids about their region, where they are and how the oysters affect them and the rivers affect them. And we kind of relate that all to each other, which I'll talk on a little bit later. I run workshops on how to lessen waste and plastic in your life, which then kind of creates a more of an idea of how we can kind of reduce all this waste and pollution overall, just in our society. I do programs based on dunes, coastal ecology, beach grass, public education programs for families, whether it's involved in seining or just walks in general. It's great to get people out and outdoors, and that's kind of how we develop that passion that people have for nature and for their local environment around them, or just the environment as a whole. It's important to get people to understand that how our planet is and keeping it healthy is something that we really need to do. And that's how we get people passionate about the environment, and then they want to take action and make sure that we protect it. And I also do programs where I go into schools and I teach about marine science, and I take kids on field trips. Kids will come to Sandy Hook to learn all about the ecosystem that we have specifically in that area, whether it's fishes and creatures living within our bays and oceans, or if it's different kinds of mollusks that we can find up on the sand, anything along those lines. And how exactly I got into this work is years ago, I was a lifeguard on the beach, and I always was talking to people about the environment around me. They would be asking me questions about maybe what washed up on the ocean, or about creatures that you would typically see in our region. So I always found myself enjoying talking to others and educating them about what we have on our beaches and just in our local areas. And then I found myself being an educator for the Monmouth County Park System, where I just continually talk to school-age children about whether it be local flora and fauna that you would find in parks or along your rivers or your waterways in general. I also worked as an environmental educator at a farm. So I then brought that education to talking more about soil or crops or agriculture and I substitute taught for a little bit. So for a while, I didn't think that I wanted to get into teaching, but it just looked like all of my job choices kind of fell into that education realm. So I've been with the Littoral Society as education director for a little bit under 3 years now. And I truly enjoy teaching others about the environment and sparking that passion and that joy that you see grow within others as they get to be outside and experience the beauty that our planet has. So that's me.
Thank you, Nicole. And our fourth panelist tonight is Amber Egroth, who is a fourth grade teacher at the Anthony Rossi Elementary School.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amber Egroth, and as Jenna said, I'm a fourth grade teacher at a school in way down south in Vineland, New Jersey. My degree is in geography and education, and in college, I really became passionate about the earth and the environment, and my final project for geography was erosion at East Point Lighthouse, and I really got to do a lot of field work. So once I got into the classroom, it seemed only natural to try to incorporate that into my teaching. And also becoming a mother. Of course, I wanted my own children to be advocates for the environment and to see volunteerism. And so it was important to be a mentor and also to get them involved. I became involved with the American Littoral Society in 2014. Like I said, I had a young son at that point. He was 4 years old, and we were really just looking for opportunities. And we looked at our local newspaper, and we found beach cleanups. We found horseshoe crab tagging. We found festivals that gave education on watersheds and the coast, and really started attending those things and volunteering for those events. We also found a lot of other great organizations. We did tree planting at Jampetro Park. It was a riparian buffer. We did the Return the Favor training, which is learning how to flip over horseshoe crabs, and of course, learning how important horseshoe crabs are to our ecosystem. We also did lots of things with Citizens United of Morris River, which they focus on the Morris River watershed, which is just directly connected to the coast. And they provide a lot of educational programs. They do a big festival for kids each summer and get them out in nature. As far as the classroom, we recently completed a project with the American Littoral Society. They work with schools often. And it's so important to get our children involved because they are our future. They are the grassroots advocates of the next decade. So we were able to install 2 bioretention gardens at our school. Our school falls within a certain zone that we're focused on preventing stormwater runoff and pollution into the stormwater drain. So the students received education through the American Littoral Society. They brought in a model of a watershed, and they showed how pollution runs through the streams and goes out into the ocean. The kids really loved that presentation. They also learned about rain gardens and how to care for them. So when we came to the point of the excavation and planting, the students were supposed to be involved, but because of COVID, we sort of had to go ahead and do that part without them. However, they have been informed of the process through me. And then once we're back in school, you know, they'll be caring for the rain gardens. And we were back in school for a short time, and they were able to see it and see how it works. So that was really great. Another way that we can get kids involved is to work with the local environmental commission. And so that would be someone like Kristin, right? So with Vineland, they donate a tree to each school every year for Arbor Day. So we did a big tree planting, the students painted rocks, the mayor signed a proclamation for us, and they learned all about trees and their role in the environment in the meantime. Back to the rain gardens, they also, the Pinelands Preservation Alliance, Rutgers Co-op, and then I don't know if Littoral Society is involved in this or not, but there's a residential rain garden rebate initiative where if you reside within a certain zone, you do a webinar and they offer a rebate for you to install a rain garden on your own property. And then another program I wanted to talk about to get children involved is the Power Save program, which is with the Alliance to Save Energy and South Jersey Gas. They work with schools to teach children about energy and water conservation, and students actually get to use tools and do audits. And it's a really cool program. So thank you for coming, and I hope I could be of help to give you tips on how to get children involved in grassroots advocacy.
Thank you, Amber. And so now we will transition into the discussion portion of the webinar. I have here in front of me a series of questions that were submitted ahead of time, but we are still collecting questions as we go. So we welcome you and encourage you to submit questions and comments in the chat, and we'll be sure to ask as many questions as we possibly can up until we hit 7 o'clock. So let's start with what are some tangible ways that people can get involved in environmental advocacy if they are not already connected to an organization that's doing the work? And for our panelists, I'll leave this open. It's an open question for anyone who wants to jump in. Maybe just sort of like raise your hand to indicate that you're coming off of mute to avoid any speaking over each other. So tangible ways that people can get involved if they're not already involved with an organization that's doing the work. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think that it's such a great question. I think that there are as many ways as ideas that you might have floating in your head, because I feel like the most benefit that someone who's looking to get engaged is going to have is if you find a way to engage in whatever you're passionate in. So if you are passionate about stormwater runoff, look in your community and you're likely to find someone who's also passionate about stormwater runoff and who has either created an organization or has an initiative or has some education around that issue. Because we always, sometimes I think we think
which is fine. And then I tried to have a call with them.
I think we're alone in this, but there are always other people out there who are interested and excited in something that you might be too. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm taking a long way around of saying, just search your community, see what's already out there, do a Google search in the first instance. I think it organically happens based on what you're interested in, which is a very sort of vague way, but that's always been how I've found my people is in, going, okay, ocean conservation in Boston, and finding little groups of people who are already interested in that and maybe have a meetup. Of course, that's before times. But once again, we'll be able to meet in person. And so that's just such like a really easy way and very, low risk and low effort to just, step your toes into advocacy or even considering how to get engaged. So that's sort of my thought of an easy way to start.
I'd love to add to that, actually. You're so right, and I think you hit the nail on the head with following your passion. And kind of one way to really find out who's doing what in your community is definitely contact your local environmental commission and do exactly what Sarah said, which is to Google kind of the interest that you have, and then find out what organizations, non-for-profits, and there's going to be different stakeholders within the community doing these things. And just when you see someone that seems to be super active, an organization, then call that organization, because even if you're not presently involved, kind of starting from scratch yourself is much harder than linking up with someone who already has programs in place and opportunities to volunteer and meet other people that have the same passions that you do. So that's a really good question.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, those are great answers. I was going to say you could even just start with kind of educating yourself based on what it is that you want to get involved with. So if Sarah said, if your passion is some stormwater runoff, if you want to learn more about it, start using your resources you have around you. So whether that is Google or a library or buying different books on it, kind of figuring out how you want to get involved, why it's something that you are passionate about. And then sometimes social media can be a great outlet to find others that have that same interest and passion. And then you can see those local organizations posting about what they're doing, whether it be a webinar like this or down the line, an event that you can go to in person, or just different ways in general to reach out to others, whether it's your local commission or a club that has been started in your school or region in general. There's plenty of great outlets in that way.
Thank you, Nicole. And then I'll also just take a moment to plug, maybe you aren't already connected to an organization, but organizations like the Littoral Society and groups like the Healthy Oceans Coalition, we are always looking to expand our circles. So we welcome you, if you're not already engaged with our work, to reach out to us. Healthy Oceans Coalition focuses very much so on policy from like the federal level, but it's essentially our job to make advocating for federal ocean and coastal policy as easy as possible. So we're here to serve as a resource for you in that capacity. And then the American Littoral Society is a membership-based group that offers all kinds of different opportunities to get engaged and covers a lot of ground in terms of what kind of work they do, whether it's restoration, education, advocacy work. So that could be a really good place to start. And there was a follow-up to that question specifically relating to sharing ways to get high school students involved in this work. Do any of you have thoughts on great ways to engage high school students? I see Kristin raising her hand.
I do. That's been a real focus for us. I think that Amber mentioned it earlier, that getting the kids involved is such an important way, and we've been really successful getting the younger kids involved in the schools. We started an environmental club in the middle school, which was really well attended. There is an environmental club in the upper schools, but one thing that I did in Rumson, we started a junior green team that is open to high school and college age, just to kind of get that demographic, because they have so many good ideas and they kind of understand things differently than at least my age group does, with how to use social media and kind of the issues that they're facing. So I think when you start these clubs, what we did with the green team, the junior green team, is we focused on teaching them how to work with the municipal government. So it was kind of educational for them, understanding how things work, how resolutions get passed, how to kind of present their ideas to the town. They were able to get a anti-idling resolution passed last year, which was really exciting. And they had to do a lot of research and make a lot of effort. But engaging them and giving them the power to do that, and then having them have a success, like they are just so excited, and the club is growing leaps and bounds. People are wanting to join because of that. So I think that when you kind of create avenues for them to engage and get involved, that's a really important way. And if you're talking about your own kids, then that's different. That's, you know, my kids are not on the junior green team, unfortunately, but I don't have the answer to that one. But definitely kind of finding the local groups of young people so that they're all together and they're dealing with their peers is much more interesting to them, I think.
Thank you, Kristin. I also just quickly, I posted a couple of other groups that we work with through the Healthy Oceans Coalition that are youth focused and youth led, and could be great organizations to check out to get high schoolers involved, in addition to everything that Kristin just mentioned. I don't know if I saw Nicole raising her hand. Okay. I was like, I think I did, but I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Yes, I think a few great ways to get high school age students involved, or I guess it could really apply to younger students as well in certain instances. So I work with a lot of schools as an informal educator, whether I go into schools and I teach the students that day during their science period about a subject, or they come to me at Sandy Hook. So a great way is to reach out to informal educators that work for different nonprofits in your area. Or, I mean, now they don't even have to be in your area because we are doing everything online. You can reach out to people, informal educators that work for nonprofits anywhere around the country, and they can do a lesson for your students. Outside of that, I've worked with a lot of schools that have teachers that run environmental clubs. And what I find that's really important is that teachers' attitude and enthusiasm towards that club. I've had events where the teacher who ran that club was so enthusiastic about it that they had almost the entire club show up because everybody felt so passionate and excited to be there because of that person. And then there were other schools that showed up that had less presence there because there wasn't as much passion or drive within that certain club. But I think some great ways to do that are to do events that get your students excited. So find out what matters to them, ask them specifically. So don't just assume what is important to them. Ask them what gets them excited. Maybe show them people that are public figures that they look up to that do this kind of work. So whether it's like a local celebrity or an athlete, something like that, that can show them that there's people out there that are doing this kind of work and really spark their interest. Bring attention to what matters to them, and then also to give them responsibilities. So once you figure out what it is that they're passionate about, what they want to do, give them responsibilities and direction so that they can start directing others and taking charge of actions that need to be done. Because I feel like when you feel more responsible for doing something and it's up to you, okay, I'm the leader instead of my teacher's going to do it. It's a great way to get people to feel like this is my action that I need to do.
Thank you, Nicole. And thank you all. Those are all really insightful responses. And so now the next question that we had submitted was relating to these really challenging times that we find ourselves in. And, you know, people are just curious to know, how are you remaining active and engaged with your community and your work during the COVID-19 pandemic? Kristin?
Sorry, I don't want to answer every question. I can just say that it's been a real challenge. We had to get creative. I mentioned the River Friendly Challenge earlier. That was one way. That's all virtual, and it's an opportunity for people to get engaged and do these river friendly practices that are listed on the website, and then take a picture of themselves doing it and post the picture. So no one has to kind of gather except for with their own family, whoever they're doing the practices with. You know, the other thing that we've been looking a lot into is creating toolkits for people. So we used to do we do every year an EcoFest, where we get stakeholders come together, including American Littoral Society, to come and present on an environmental topic. And the interesting thing about this event is that every presentation has to include a children's activity. So what we did this year is we had everyone take a short video of their activity, and we compiled it into Clean Ocean Action, spearheaded this. They compiled it into a toolkit that is now virtual, that can be rolled out to any of the schools that would like to use it, or just personally, people can, go to this. It's all web-based. So, we're trying to get creative, but it's really hard. So I'm actually would love to hear of other ideas that people have to, to remain engaged during this time because it could happen again, and we could be stuck inside for a period of time and miss out on the live events, which are really powerful.
Thank you, Kristin. Go ahead, Nicole.
Thank you. So one of the ways that we're trying to keep local communities and people in general engaged are something like this. This is one example where we have webinars based around any kind of topic that we specialize in, whether it be grassroots advocacy or marine science, or for instance, I run zero waste webinars on how to reduce your trash at home and your plastic use. So those are different ways that online we are engaging with people, because we can't meet in person, but we also compile different lists depending on the time of the year or what our theme of the month is that you can do in your area. So for instance, we typically do a New Year's Day walk, and it gathers a whole lot of people. And so instead of doing that this year, we'll have a short video of all of us saying Happy New Year, but then a list of places that you can go on your own with your family, or maybe a friend that you feel comfortable being around, and going on a walk or a hike or something that's close to you. Because I know that, at least for me, being crammed up at home, I don't like that. I like to get outside. I don't care what the temperature is outside. I'll bundle up and I'll go outside. So I think that's a great way to get out of the house. So we're giving people a list of places that they can go to. We ask people to stay engaged with us. So whether we do webinars like this, we give out our information to remain involved with us. And I always give out, for instance, my email and my social media if people want to reach out whenever they want and ask a question, or just chat about how they've been doing since maybe a sustainability webinar, and give kind of what they've been doing since then and how it's helped them. And also just doing lessons for local schools. I'll have schools reach out to me and I'll reach out to them so that I can kind of pop in for 30 minutes to an hour and do a lesson for anywhere from elementary school kids to high school kids. And it gives a different face for the day and a different kind of lesson that maybe those kids wouldn't normally get. And then hopefully they pass that knowledge on to their families.
Thank you, Nicole. So our next question is asking you all to discuss how grassroots advocates and organizations can work with local government to affect environmental policy change.
Yeah, I can start that off a little bit. So one concrete example that I mentioned a little bit in my introduction is the Littoral Society, as part of our broader ocean planning work, really wanted to do some engagement of local municipalities. And, we had, already been working with some municipalities around a fairly easy lift, considering, which is preventing offshore oil and gas exploration off the New Jersey coast. That's a very easy way to get many municipalities engaged, because it feels like a very, it's an issue that hits home pretty easily for folks. And so, you know, like Kristin was talking about, the idea of getting municipalities engaged in an issue by writing a resolution. And some municipalities are really great and have the capacity to write resolutions and say, you know, we're against offshore oil and gas. We want to protect our coast for our fishermen, for our surfers, for our beach goers, for our, you know, local businesses that depend on a healthy, oil-free, you know, beach to be able to survive. And then there are some municipalities that don't have that capacity, and being able to work with a set of environmental organizations or other community groups to help write those and help pass those or speak in support of to municipalities can feel like a really tangible way for organizations to work with their own local, you know, municipalities and, you know, local governments. And so that's how we've done that. And then it helps us then transition. We build relationships with that municipality. And then when we come back and say, hey, there's this slightly less exciting issue around ocean planning, we've created a relationship with that local government, and they're more likely to listen to us and sit down and have a conversation about issues that sound less enticing, but are just as important to the work that they're doing in local governance. And so that's been something that we have found has been really successful, even if they don't end up passing a specific resolution, in just relationship building, because at the end of the day, policy and advocacy are really important. And you may come in with something that you really want someone to do, but it's really about people, right? So, and I found this a lot, I think, maybe going back to that past question too, Jenna, that you just asked around how you make connections in this, you know, crazy space that we're all in right now, is policy is actually about effectuating change of people, of us. And so to be able to do that, you have to really actually create relationships with people who make decisions, people who care about the ocean, people who care about the coast, or they care about, you know, being able to go fishing or whatever's important to them. And I feel like the best success in any of those things that we try to do as advocates is centering people and remembering that every piece of policy is changing behaviors of us, of other people like us. So.
Thank you, Sarah. Amber?
Yes, I'd like to add on to that, as a citizen who is not directly employed by an environmental organization. So just as, you know, a regular citizen, how to get involved, or to how to let your local government know what its citizens want and how they feel. I would just suggest directly emailing your mayor, your senators, your congressmen, and even the governor. The governor has never responded to me, but my mayor has written me back. I've had senators and a congressman both call my telephone, like call me back to speak about the issue that I was concerned with, and even had a senator organize a Zoom meeting of other people who felt the way I did about my issue. So I would say, don't be afraid to contact the people. They work for us, who are in our local government. And when they know how their citizens feel, that sparks their interest and can direct them in the way they, you know, make policy.
Can I add to that?
Yes, yes, please.
I think those are really, really good points, and I totally agree. I think from my experience working with 2 different municipalities, what I've found to be the most successful is when you come to them not with a complaint, but with a solution, and you have thought through kind of, what is the issue that you want to focus on? Maybe it's stormwater, like you've mentioned before, and some of the issues that we face with stormwater. And so then if you can come to them with a solution, like installing, some kind of conservation planting or rain garden or stormwater retention system in place that you can then kind of help work with them on. All these things cost money, so they're not going to want to hear that you're going to cost them any money. But if you can find a way to work with, for example, Rutgers or one of those other places, get a grant, kind of help spearhead some of these projects, they're much more receptive, and they don't view you, because they're dealing with so much, and conservation issues are just, quite honestly, most usually not on the top of their list, not in their budget. They're thinking of schools, they're thinking of this and that. So if you can come to them with some really good ideas in a very positive way, you just generally will get a lot more done. And going to the meetings and just being there and congratulating them for the things they're doing that are great. We just actually finished the Sustainable Jersey certification process, and through that process, I was able to see all the amazing things our town was already doing. So I've been in a great position to thank them for being so sustainable and recognizing that. And they were just things they weren't even doing on purpose to be sustainable. They just happened to be doing them because they were the right things to do, and they weren't getting any recognition for it. So, that's kind of the way I come about things, is like solution driven, working with them. I find that to be more successful.
Yeah, and I'm keeping an eye on the time here too, and realizing that we're coming up close to 7 p.m. And I want to make sure that we have an opportunity for each of you to share with the group a little bit more about how people can get involved in your work, or if you can share some thoughts on ways that people can get more involved in the conservation efforts in their communities.
You want one of us to go first?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
please.
Well, please, anyone who's in our local community, feel free to contact me. We have a website which has been posted, but one thing that's coming up that I hope you all can attend, and it actually is a really, really fun event. It's an annual event that we do called Rally for the Rivers Eco Fest, which I mentioned before. It's going to be June 5th. God willing, if there's, the ability to gather in groups outside. But that's, getting involved with us there, whether as an attendee, or maybe you yourselves have a booth, you want to have a table that teaches our community about something environmentally sustainable, please let us know. And please go on our website and sign the pledge for the river friendly practices and be a part of that challenge. And yeah, please contact me with any questions you have if you're local or not local.
Thank you, Kristin. And we'll share everybody's contact information in our follow-up email as well. Nicole?
Yeah, so ways to get involved with the work that I do are, if you are somebody who is a teacher, you can always reach out and ask for me to teach a lesson during one of the slots you have available during the day, whether you're teaching virtually or in person. If you're not a teacher and you want to get involved, you're just somebody with a family or an individual, you can sign up for different events that we have. So most of our events now are webinars, and they're online based, but in the future, we host many events, walks, seining, anything along those lines in person. So those are always fun events. If you have questions or suggestions of what you would like to learn and like to see, I always encourage that. I love to hear about what you maybe don't know enough about or what you're more interested in. And then I can create programs or find programs that I already have that are based around that, and have that be something available the next month that you can be a part of. So those are a few different things.
Thank you, Nicole. Sarah?
Yeah, so since Nicole talked from the Littoral Society side, I can talk a little bit about from the sort of coalition side of things. We're always trying to think of ways to engage folks during this time of not being able to gather in large numbers or many numbers at all. And so we have been trying to do a lot more online, and there's a lot of different ways that the coalition, Healthy Oceans Coalition, makes different events available to members and the public. We just started hosting with a partner climate conversations where we kind of dive into an issue. And so the last one we did was on plastics, the life cycle of plastic, federal legislation, how folks can get involved. And so if you head over to the Healthy Oceans Coalition website, which is just healthyoceanscoalition.org, you can find different ways to engage on our events calendar. It's a little light right now in the month of December, but we have some fun things lined up in the new year, and we have a bunch of content that's on our blog post. Our Healthy Oceans blog. And so there's in January, we'll host a skill building webinar coming up about how to do digital advocacy to members of Congress. And that would be open to everybody here on the call. So you can sign up to get our newsletter where you would be able to get a link to that webinar. I'm really excited about that. We work with this amazing group called Spitfire, and they are truly incredible communicators. So that's something that's really exciting coming up in January if folks want to get involved. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Sarah. Amber, do you have any parting thoughts?
I just really learned a lot by listening to everyone speak about how they're directly involved and sort of giving websites that we can go to. I would just reiterate to connect with those local organizations and your local government, and to just keep up the good work. Just because we're in a pandemic, the earth doesn't stop spinning. So we need to keep using our voices and stay involved. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Hillary. I noticed that you put in the chat a way to sign up for our mailing list for the American Littoral Society. That will be a really great way to stay in touch with us and hear about all of the great things that are coming down the line in terms of virtual and eventually in person events that we welcome you to participate in. And I really want to acknowledge too that I have seen some fantastic questions and comments come in, as well as trying to work down through the list of some of the questions and comments that were submitted in advance of the event. So what we can do is in our follow-up, make sure that we include our contact information so you can reach out to panelists that you have specific questions for. And then we will do our best to actually answer the questions that we didn't get to tonight in written form. So we want to just acknowledge that we are sorry that we didn't get to all of the questions, but I think that the ones that we did get to were fantastic, and the panelists offered some really wonderful insight. So I would like to extend my gratitude both to all of the panelists and then for each and every one of you for joining. I learned a lot. I feel like a renewed sense of energy to enter into 2021 and continue on with this work. And I hope that we get to hear from some of you following this panel, and we can all work together. Oh, I also will include here, my email is here if you'd like to contact me sooner than when you hear from us in the follow-up email. So that is how to contact me. But yes, it's 7 o'clock. I thank you all again, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening and a wonderful holiday season. And please don't hesitate to reach out should you have any questions, comments, or thoughts.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to be with you.